Hey everybody, here's the video that you've been waiting for. Hopefully this is an exciting video for you. It definitely is for me because this is should be a huge learning experience. We're going to cover a lot of ground. We're going to move really fast, and this is going to be considered a very advanced topic because we're dealing with some pretty much the most complicated thing, at least in my opinion, that you could potentially do in the Power Platform by creating a custom connector using an API. This API is fairly friendly and simple, so there are lots of APIs that are super gnarly, and it could get really, really complex, especially if you're dealing with multi-part form data. Then you have to start getting into some craziness within the YAML code for the Swagger definition of creating the custom connector. In any event, but yeah, this is pretty advanced. But it can get slightly more complicated. So in any event, super excited again. So what we're doing is we're building from the last video. If you haven't seen that, make sure, because you're trying to follow along because you've installed, LM Studio locally on your machine. You're going to need to make sure you've done the Cloudflare trick that I showed you with tunnels, and that'll allow you to take your actual machine and expose it on out to the internet. Again, disclaimer, there's no API key, but there's no personal sensitive private data that's in it, but it is potentially a risk and or liability. Again, contact an attorney if you really want to see what's going on, but if you have to contact an attorney, you're probably using it for business. And again, as a call out, make sure you fill out the form for the folks that created LM Studio and make sure that there's no fee or there's no additional things that you need to follow to do this. But as far as just playing with this, doing what I'm showing you here, you don't have to do it because you're just learning. As long as you don't put it in a production state and you're just using it for learning and development, I'm pretty sure you're not going to have to contact them because they don't care about that. All right, so that being stated, we're going to create a custom connector here. So we're going to do new from blank, and let's call this LM Studio. Let's do LM Studio with a dash. Okay, let's upload a graphic. We'll do this white one, and we'll make the background completely black. So that's going to be 6. Actually, I'll probably just get away with 3. Either 6 or 3 zeros. That's the hex value for black. For the HTTPS, we're going to come back over here. We're going to steal this lmstudio.com. I probably have a slash in here unnecessarily, and I do. Okay, so that's it. That's all you have to do for this, okay? So you're obviously going to change this out for whatever your URL is to make it work for, your instance. And then for security, again, there's no security. So we're moving right along into definitions. Now we're going to create 2 definitions today. And again, going back to Postman, if you're not familiar with Postman, trying to think here. Actually, you know what? I didn't introduce you to Postman. So let's do that now. So here is the desktop version of it. And the reason I did the desktop version of it is because 127.0.0.1 is my endpoint, and I use this for testing. And so this is also something that I'm going to put in the description of the video so that you'll have access to it. If we go to LM Studio here, actually, let's do this a different way. Let's search on Postman. Let's do Postman LM Studio. And let's see here. Here you go. LM Studio, get started, blah, 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 blah. This is probably mine, I hope. Let's click on this. Anyway, I'm logged in, so let's sign out. Let's go all the way back to Google, and let's see if this gives us something different. So, view the complete documentation. I don't know that this one's mine. Oh, creator, David Soden. Yeah, it is me. Well, the reason I got a little bit confused is because I have a page here, and the page is not showing up as I'm thinking it's supposed to show up. So when you click on this right here, there you go. Here's my book. So that's what I was hoping to see, but I couldn't find. Maybe I clicked on this, and I think I did. All right, so anyway, long story short, Postman's available on the internet, and most APIs are available on the internet. However, this, because it's LM Studio and it's running on your machine, it's not. It's on your local host. It's on your local computer. So you're going to want to download LM Studio Desktop, because when you try to execute and run these, let me shut all these down here so that we don't have any extra stuff floating around. So we'll click this, just kind of show you what's going on here. So when you click one of these commands on the left side, this is your workspace, you get these different actions. So for example, if you say new, add a request, or sorry, they're not called actions, I'm thinking Power Automate. You do a new request, and a request can either do one of these methods. So get, we get information. Post, we write information. Put is also another, post is a way of posting information that usually returns something. Put is usually writing something, as well as patch. Delete is delete, head and the options. Anyway, all these other ones, the only ones we're going to use is get and post, because that's all we have here. And the get is a very, very, very simple thing. There's some blah, blah, blah in the headers. The only thing you're really going to have to worry about is you need to come over here to body. And in this case, it's just freeform data, because we don't have anything we're passing in. It's simply a URL, and then we're going to get that information back from the API. And this is what we're after in this use case. However, when we get over into chat, there is some body information. This is called a payload. And what we need to do with this, when we're making a request, in this case, this is a post method, and this is what we're posting. We're posting this information. So think of this like URL parameters, if you're familiar with that. And we give it information to use by the API's backend, which does some filtering and or some functions. And in this case, it's making some API calls to get me information from the large language model and then get a response. And so if we hit send, then after we post this and with the payload, it then does its magic. And then what we're after is this content inside of messages, inside of choices, which is part of the main body that's being returned from the API, which I'm going to show you how to get through all of this in Power Automate, as well as Canvas app, Power App. And we're going to create a custom connector with these two actions, model and chat. So we're going to come back to this. Make sure you've downloaded the desktop version. So Postman is available on Mac and Linux and Windows. So all of you should be able to follow along with this, regardless of what kind of computer you're using. So download this and then search the LM Studio. And typically what you want to do is, you get here, and then what you do is you fork it, and you'll create a fork to your own personal, account and or workspace and or collection or whatever. And so once you've got that down, then you'll be able to use this. All right, so we'll need this information here when we're building the custom connector. So you're going to see me flip back and forth to this. So the first one we're going to want to get is this models. All right, now that being said, here is again in the browser. Again, I'm flipping back and forth. I told you this was going to get confusing and go quick, so hopefully I haven't lost you guys yet. So what we're doing now is, again, in the last video I showed you about dealing with Cloudflare and how to expose essentially LM Studio to the world. And we need to do that in this use case because Power Platform is online and it needs to only use online resources. It has no clue what's going on inside your personal computer. Now, there is a way for those of you that have been following me or watching, and you're also about on the same level as me, you probably already know that there are gateways, and you could use that as well. So that is a completely separate topic, but yes, you absolutely can do that, and you don't need to use Cloudflare. You can make some of these calls inside the wall. You'll have to use the IP address. So if you do want to go down that path or that route, You will have to flip this other switch here, serve on local network, if you're using the gateway. I haven't covered that previously, but just wanted to get that out of the way. If you guys want to explore it and you're having problems, can't getting it work, if you do go the gateway route, if you do go the gateway route, you're going to need to flip this switch to turn on the local machine, and hopefully you'll have a static IP. You may also just be able to leave this off and just use 127.0.0.1 as long as the gateway is installed on the same machine as, LM Studio. So anyway, I completely digress, but I wanted to knock that out for those of you that may try to get jiggy with this and go a different route. Not going to cover it in this video. All right, so that being said, we're now past the security, the general, and at this point, we're going to go ahead and add our first simple action, and that's going to be a get the models. So we're just going to call this models, M-O-D-E-L-S. I'm going to copy and paste this 3 times. This is the most important one down here, Operation ID. This is what you're going to see show up in Power Automate. This is what you're going to see in IntelliSense on Canvas app, Power FX. It's also important to flip the switch to important because you want this thing to be front and center. You don't want it to be buried in any of the menus, or with IntelliSense, you want it to, really stand out. So make sure you flip this switch to important. The request is very simply get, and what we're going to do is we're going to post in this complete URL. So for you, again, it's going to be whatever it is, and then you're going to get the V1 models. Just to clarify, full circle, if we come down here at the bottom, this supported endpoints, and click it, we can see these are the endpoints. So whatever your definition of your URLs, these are the ones we're using. So today we're going to focus on V1 chat / completions and V-1 models. Okay, so I'm going to copy this out here, and we're going to paste this in there, and we're going to do impact, and this should not have any errors. This looks good. Now for the response, we're going to need to do a response. So click in that white area. Let me go back, make sure you understood what I just did here. So here's the request. We've already finished this. Now we're down here on the response. There is one here. It's default, but you want to click into it. And you want to make sure you import the response. Now to get the response, this is where Postman comes in. Okay, so here is what we're getting back from Postman. We're going to select all, copy this out, and then we're going to paste this into the body. Okay, this is why you need Postman, because you need to get this back from the response, and then Power Platform is going to do all of the heavy lifting for us. So we choose import, and now we've got these items here. It gets a little confusing, so let me show you what's happening here. We got ID, object, owned by, and object again. So we've got 2 objects. Let's look at this in the response. All right, so I don't want to digress too long, too far, but the JSON, you need to understand it. And if you're not familiar, a quick crash course is going to be this. The mustache or curly braces in JSON represents a record. I want you to think of a record like a row in an Excel spreadsheet, and it could have n number, meaning any number of columns inside of there, okay? When you see the square bracket, okay, and by the way, JSON is key value. So an example of this is ID is a key, the value is lava v1 blah blah blah. It's all key value, key value, key value. That's really what JSON is. But we do these key values in records and in a table. Okay, when you see square brackets, this represents a sheet or a table. And then inside of the table, we have these mustache braces. Okay, so I want you to think of a Excel spreadsheet when you see the bracket. Again, the curly braces represents a record. And then that record, or the columns in this table, are 3. Column 1 is object ID, column 2 is object, column 3 is owned by. Okay, so hopefully you can visually see what's going on. Now, this is object inside of a record inside of the table that's bound to data. So data, its value is a table. In this instance, ID is the key, but its value is just a piece of text. So your values for your keys can be text, integers, numbers, and if it is an integer or number, typically you don't see the double quotes, you just see the numerical value. It could also be Boolean, true and false, with no parentheses, or sorry, no quotations. I don't want to digress too far, but I at least need you to understand what's going on here. All right, so just know that the return value is a record, and what we really want is the table of data inside of there. All right, so with that being said, I just wanted to let you know that there's an object inside of here, but there's an object also way down here at the bottom. And so this is where these two objects are coming from. And it's really hard at this point to figure out what this is. But with IntelliSense, when we refer to objects, we won't accidentally pick the wrong one because it is in a hierarchy. It does follow this JSON schema format, and IntelliSense will help guide us along. So we'll see all of this into action in just a few moments. So I'm going to go back here, and for the most part, this action is now done. We're done with models. It's quite simple. You might be tempted to go through here and hit create connector and then test, but if you do that, you're going to wind up creating a connector. You're going to get yourself into trouble. I'm begging you right now. Do not hit create connector, and do not create a connection from this connector until you're completely 100% done with this, because the Power Platform does this stupid ass thing behind the scenes where it writes data to some cache, and I don't know how long the cache lives, but if you mess this up, what's going to happen is it's going to write something, it's going to cache it, and then you're going to have to wait a half a day, a couple of hours for the cache to get cleared out, make your changes, wait for it to propagate, or you're going to have to create a whole new connector because you're going to get stuck in this loop. And if you're not comfortable, you're not familiar with custom connectors, you're going to get yourself into some real trouble here. I can't tell you how many times I have done custom connectors and been burnt by the finickiness of the custom connector. So I'm begging you, do not do anything until you're 100% done. All right. That being said, on this rant, let's create our last item, which is going to be chat. And this is going to do our chat completions. Even though we have a chat completions or completions one, we're just going to do chat. But we can use chat for both completions and for chat. And I'll show you this in a little bit. I'm not going to go into the full threaded conversation like a full chat GPT, but I will take you far enough along so that you'll at least understand how to do this if you want to do it on your own. Again, let's click on important. We want to bring this front and center. For the request, we're going to have to import. Now remember, this one's a post. It's not a get. We're going to have to jump back over to Postman. Let's close all this down so we don't get spun around. And let's click on chat so that we do see this. Again, clicking on body. We should see this body here. Okay, so what we'll want to do is we'll want to copy out this part of the body, and let's flip back over to the Power Platform, and again, making sure we have post. Now we need to put the URL in. Now this is going to get a little funky because we're going to have to change some stuff around. So instead of V1 models, it's going to be V1, sorry, flipping around, trying to go back here. I want to get this syntax right here. Even though the beginning part is wrong, I want to make sure that I get this here. All right, now I have two V1s by accident, and that should clean it up for me because this is my URL. So I've got that there, I've got this here, that looks good. I'm going to click import. Now what we need to do is do the same thing with the response. Okay, so we're going to click in this white box where it says default, and we're going to import this response. So let's flip back over to Postman. Sorry, I keep flipping to the wrong area. Let's try this. Flip back over to Postman. So to get the response, I need to hit send. So I'm going to hit send. And again, this is working on my local host on my own machine. I'm not using the external one. Now, I could just, well, I don't want to get out of this. Anyway, the request, when I set it up, I could have used the actual URL here and shown it to you. And it would have went through just the same. So in any event, I do want to grab this out, copy this, same thing, paste it in here, and I'm going to hit import. All right. So the body, I now have all of this information that's in here. Now I'm going to tell you right now, this is how you normally build custom connectors. I went through this to show you something, and what I want to show you is that in this use case, because of how this is formatted, okay, we have object ID, we have created by, we have model, but this gets funky. Okay, we've got choices, we've got index, role message, all this other stuff, right? And so this is fine here. This is not a problem. This is what we want. And all of this is all well and good. The problem is we have this body here. And this body, if we go in and edit it, we have all of these additional items that's in here. I'm going to suggest to you that because of the way the Power Platform works, to make it easier for you as an individual, rather than try to, I'm trying to figure out a way to communicate this. So normally speaking, if you have something where you're just providing key value, key value, key value, life is okay, right? So this is a key and this is a value. Messages is the key. I'm going to skip over this in a minute because this is the problem. This is key and then value. You see that's a float, and max tokens, that's an integer. This is a Boolean stream, right? But this message is a table. And this is what's going to wind up being a problem. And because it's a problem, you're going to have to go in and do a bunch of hocus pocus. You already have the syntax known here, okay? So I'm going to suggest you do this. And this is what we're going to do here. I'm going to blow this away right here, okay? And I'm going to delete chat completely, and we're going to do it again. So let's click a new one. We're going to do chat, 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 important. This time, watch what I'm going to do. For the request, I still need this proper URL. So this time I know that I have v1. All I need is this chat and completions portion to finish it out. Okay, that all looks good. And I'm going to do a post. But this time, rather than come over to Postman, and oh my goodness, rather than come over to Postman and copy this out, I'm going to put this in my Canvas app, or I'm going to put this inside of my Power Automate, since I already have the structure known. It's a lot easier to deal with this in text programmatically than to screw with the idiosyncrasies of the Power Platform on this regard. So for the body, I'm simply going to do a mustache curly brace of open and close parentheses. So what this is essentially doing, oh my goodness gracious, what this is essentially doing is it's just saying, here's a placeholder for this information. So that's what we did here. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do there. I'm going to use import, and now once again, we'll come back over to here. I'm going to pick this up because I do need to get the response. So we'll grab this, import the response, and all of that's good. All right, so now we're going to go back out. So now with this being said, we now have all of the data, all of the information that we need. And at this point, we can now come and create, or click on create our custom connector. It is complaining that I only use 3 zeros and that it wants 6. Even though, like I said, it only needs 3 to show it. It needs programmatically 6 code, so we'll just round that out. That's what that's complaining about. Anyway, we'll click create connector. That'll get us our new connector. All right, so while this is saving, I want to call out custom connectors, or connectors in general. This is the parent. Think of a parent-child relationship, because everybody gets screwed up when they're first starting, and even seasoned people, even such as myself, gets the nomenclature mixed up. Connectors are the things that either you create with custom connectors, or connectors are the things that are a plethora. There's 1,000 connectors right now that Microsoft and third party have made that's available to you essentially out of the box. Some are premium, some come along for the ride with Microsoft Office 365. But in any event, you build your connections using these connectors. So the connections, plural, is a child of a connector. So we've got our connector. Now we need to create a connection using our connector. Okay, that's what this is. So if you didn't see what I did when I flipped the switch, I clicked on this number 6 here, test. If you're creating this custom connection for whatever reason from Power Automate, this breadcrumb trail has been replaced with a drop down. So don't get confused if you're on that side, and you'll know the purple is make.powerapps, but if you're at make.powerautomate, you'll have a drop down here if you're dealing with connectors in that area. Okay, so I'm just going to click new connection and click create. And so now I have my connector and connection. And again, I can't stress this enough. Make sure you finish everything that you saw me finish first, because if you don't do that and you create the connector and then create the connection and then you screwed up, which hopefully I didn't screw up, but if I did, it's going to be a little bit of a mess, and we'll have to fix this on the fly live. But again, custom connectors are finicky. Make sure you save that to the very end. All right, and at this stage, what we're going to do is create a Canvas app, and then we're going to go into a Power Automate video where we're going to show you how to consume this connector, and we'll see you in the next 2 videos.